Working on a farm is a really good place to remind yourself how to pay attention to what you're focused on, because that creates the reality that you're serving. And so, what I'm doing today in this conversation is talking about ponies and how that bridges over into workplace scenarios, personal life, for well-being purposes at least. So we had a 6-year-old, 7-year-old, grade two child come here the other day, and she wanted to ride the pony. So I said, well, you've got to brush the pony first. And you can see the pony in the background, I hope, or at least her butt. And she was meant to be brushing the pony first, because you always do that. You clean up the horse, look after both sides of it before you ride. And she says to me, well, I'm done. And I said, like, completely done? And she said, no, I've only just done one side, but I'm done. Meaning she didn't want to do anymore. And so I put the pony away, because if you don't do the whole job, you haven't done the job. And she came back to me later, and she said, well, I was supposed to be riding. And I said, well, yeah, you can't ride until you actually do the responsible thing, and that is look after the pony that you're riding. And I thought, it's a lot like, if you're focused on, I'm only going to do what I feel like doing, then that's one way to complete something, but it's incomplete in so many ways. Many ways as I can list here. But if you're in there to do what needs to be done, which is, in this case, brush the whole pony, not just one half. I mean, you go to have a shower, you don't just have a half a shower. You don't just wash one side of you, you do both sides of you. Same thing applies for this little pony. So you need to brush both sides of the pony, and then you can ride. And it's an illustration of what we focus on. She was focused on doing as much as she felt like she wanted to do, and that was that. She wasn't actually focused on giving the pony the care it needed, or the care that went with being able to have the privilege of having a ride on her, and just working around her, just the privilege of being around her. And it's not much different from when we are looking at organizations where we say, what are we really focused on here? Is it producing a product, or is it serving the customer? And in one of my podcasts, I had a great conversation with one of the founders of a company, Richard Sheridan, and where we talk exactly about that. We talk about, when are you done? Are you done when you've got the software developed, or are you done when you have gotten some feedback from the users on the software? There is a rolling way of seeing this, but the important thing, for well-being at least, is to pay attention to what you're focused on. And right now, that's the diet of words, it's the diet of energies, dark energies, negative stuff, lots of negative stuff right now. And so, and the idea isn't to avoid the hard stuff, it is learning how to work with the stuff. That's a whole other conversation. But for now, the opportunity or what I wanted to concentrate on in this conversation is strictly the focus part of it, because what you focus on defines your scope. So if you're simply focused on very narrowly, in this case, doing as much as I would feel like doing, and you're not actually looking at the whole picture, in this case, the whole pony, then you're handicapping yourself, because there's things that are much bigger out there that need an expanded lens, need a much wider lens. And you do focus when you're trying to get things done. At the same time, you have to pay attention to what's the scope that you're working with when you do that. So climate change, good example. Some people still think it's fiction. Other people say it's fake. It's made up by all kinds of parties. But the realistic part of it is something is still happening, and something's still having an impact. So it still calls upon us to pay attention to what it is we are focusing on as an individual, and what it is we're focusing on as a community, or as an organization, or as a team. I mean, this is fractal. You can place this any which way you want. So that's the purpose of today, was just to sort of look at how scalable the skill set is of being aware of what you focus on. There is a shamanic law that I used to use in my organizational work, which is really good for paying attention to how people are handling change initiatives and everything else. And that And you have to do that without any judgment, because that's it. You're observing. That's all you're doing. You're not assessing or anything else. You're just observing. But that law is called energy flows where attention goes. And when you work with that law, you work with the flow of energy. What are people focusing on? What are they paying attention to? What are you focused on? What are you paying attention to? Because that informs your own bias. It informs you get insight on your own process for how you're filtering out information, what you're seeing, what you're not seeing, because it's just outside of the parameters of the scope that you're taking to it. Obviously, the wider the lens, the bigger the picture. The narrower the lens, the more of a telescopic or hypodermic, depending on how narrow it is, window that you're going to be using. So I hope that, the purpose of that today was just to provide one of the skill sets that I've used in facilitation. I've used it in my personal development. I've used it in my growth and overcoming adversity, multiple situations where you had to really pay attention to what am I doing what's my mind doing, and what am I focused on, because I'm in charge of that. I can change that. I don't have to wait for anybody else. And so I hope that provides you with a little bit of food for thought, and I'll keep these conversations going, because they're all skill sets that you can use in facilitating yourself as a leader, facilitating teams, facilitating organizational change, facilitating big issues, how to handle big issues. These are core fundamental skills in my world. So thanks for joining me, and look forward to seeing you on the next conversation. Please subscribe to my Substack if you haven't already. You can find it under Navigating Uncertainty, and also subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. Thank you very much.